So South Africa has had a lot of news thrown our way over the last month or so. But this week, one of the big things that was exposed was a video taken of the CEO of the Independent Development Trust and her spokesperson trying to bribe a journalist. Let's have a look at this, at some of the pictures that came out of this particular meeting. Now, what we can see is that the people in picture here are Daily Maverick investigative journalist Pieter-Louis Myburgh, who is receiving a payment from the CEO of the IDT, the Independent Development Trust, and her name is Tebogo Malaka, and her spokesperson and parent fixer, Mr. Pasha Makhalani. Now, what is the problem here? What actually led to this wonderful moment that every journalist dreams about, where you catch people on camera trying to give you money? Well, basically, Mr. Myburgh has been doing some work, some investigation into the IDT, and he's uncovered some wonderful things. Firstly, who is the IDT? Well, the IDT is a project management arm. These are the people that when the Ministry of Public Works decides to do some big project, the IDT will actually make sure that they appoint the right contractors to build the building or to fix the plant or whatever it is. Basically, these are the project management arm. They are the go-between the ministerial decisions, the implementation, and they handle the payments, which makes them quite nice guys to get on your side, especially if you are one of the cadres that gets the tenders. The big tender that raised everybody's the big question marks was an oxygen plant tender. Basically, the idea being that hospitals use a lot of oxygen. They need plants at the hospitals, don't ask me how these things work, that then make oxygen that they can then use in their hospitals, and it's on site, and once it's in there, it provides much needed healthcare for years. That's kind of the idea, right? 800 million rand project. When this was investigated, the money had been paid over, but surprise, surprise, no oxygen plants. So the finger of suspicion sort of went around and ended with the CEO herself. And she has got quite a colorful past. Tebogo Malaka has been with IDT since 2021, CEO since later that year, and she has had scandals swirling around her. Basically, when she saw that Myburgh was on her tail for this oxygen plant tender, they terminated the tender, basically hoping that this would end the investigation. And then, like all good investigative journalists, Mr. Myburgh turned his attention to Ms. Malaka's own personal financial affairs. And oh boy, did he find some things. Firstly, she comes from that new hotbed of South African graft, Waterfall City, where she owns a property there, along with many other properties. The property alone, of just a bare piece of land, was bought for nearly 4 million rand. And she was in the process of building a palatial, weekend spot at the cost of about, 5 million, give or take 1 million or 10, right? And only problem is that she never seemed to take any loans, and it seemed to just be money that appeared out of thin air, and work that was being undertaken on a new house without any bills. Nobody's being paid here. So needless to say, you don't have to be the proverbial brain surgeon to work out that something was up. And Myburgh has been writing about it. So Tebogo Malaka didn't like this at all and decided to get Pasha onto the job. He arranged this meeting where he said to Pieter-Louis Myburgh, we'll share some of the love with you if you stop reporting on this property deal, because it's quite stressful. Recognizing that some fun was going to come, they arranged to have lunch at Stellenbosch. And these two people flew from Johannesburg to Cape Town and then drove to Stellenbosch to have lunch on a wine farm, where out popped this money, 60,000 rand in cold, hard 200 rand notes, with the promise of more to come. If, perhaps some tenders that you could get in the middle of. And, you don't have to do much. You just have to receive the tender, get somebody else to do the work, and you pocket the many millions in between. Just stop investigating these property deals. The whole thing was uncovered. Pieter-Louis Myburgh said this has all been part of a thing. We've got lawyers involved, investigators, and we're going to take a case, and we're going to be talking about property deals. So there'll be more to come. So that's all sort of the normal South African petty pilfering from the state, coffers, our tax money going to people that are not delivering what they meant to deliver. When the Minister of Finance gets up there in his budget speech and he says, we are helping the country, we're building hospitals, we've got oxygen plants, well, they end up in a house in Waterfall City. So understand that the people that are paying a price are those people that are going to die that don't get oxygen when they need it. Just that we can bring this back to reality. The thing that really interested me, right, and I spoke about this recently, in fact, somebody alerted me to this, is Musi Maimane, saying, it's very interesting that the CEO was more concerned about the media. In the old days, if somebody's on your tail, you bribe a policeman that's coming to arrest you, or the investigator, the detective, or the Hawks, or the SIU. Do you remember those bodies when they used to exist? You would pay that person who's going to come and ask some very awkward questions. But no, if you've stolen money, the people to pay off are the journalists. So this really got me thinking, well, hell, what would lead to somebody like Tebogo Malaka, clearly very intelligent, CEO of a big job, earning lots of money, normal part of her salary, but clearly not enough for her. What would lead her to the point where the most important person to get off the case would be the journalist and not the law? Well, the only conclusion one can make is that the law isn't a problem. In other words, she knows that the police or the SIU or the Hawks, whoever meant to be there, we pay so many different people that don't do their jobs. It's hard to understand which one's which, but the point is that she must have had some certainty that the police weren't going to come after her. And then I thought, well, actually, hang on a second. She just heads up what we call a state-owned entity. In other words, a company that actually belongs to the state, but answers to a politician. Surely she must have been concerned about the politician. You've got Auditor General, you've got internal audit, external audit, you've got auditors up the wazoo. Why would you be worried about the journalist and not the politicians that oversee what you do? Well, clearly this wasn't a problem for her, because the biggest problem in her life was Pieter-Louis Myburgh and not the politicians. Who were the politicians? Well, Tebogo Malaka's problem started last year after the election when Dean McPherson became the minister from the DA and saw this thing standing out quite clearly as a problem. IDT, the numbers just didn't add up, and started an investigation into the IDT, only to discover that many other politicians in South Africa are very quick to say, how dare you, including Herman Mashaba, who tweeted that, do you know Dean McPherson's father was a councillor in apartheid, blah, 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 he should leave this woman alone. And it got me thinking, who was Dean McPherson's predecessor? Because this malfeasance goes way back before May of 2024. Well, his predecessor was ANC Sihle Sikalala, who has been around the town, and he's not a big fan of the GNU, and now we know why. When he was Minister of Public Works, there were all sorts of allegations swirling around this lady, and Sikalala shut them down. He, in fact, endorsed her position as CEO when other people within the state were saying suspend her. But he was only there from 2023. This lady's been there since 2021. Did she only find the crooked route in the last 2 years? Probably not. Who was the predecessor to Sikalala as Minister of Public Works? Well, none other than Patricia de Lille, whose name appeared, Minister of Tourism now, and, there's recently been question marks about the actions in SA tourism. So clearly she wasn't doing much about these allegations. We don't know for sure, but she was the minister. It's their job to know. That's what we pay them a lot of money for. That's what we give them blue lights to protect them so that they can do these kind of investigations. But clearly it must have been quite well hidden from Patricia de Lille. Minister Zikalala, who knows? He did say that this woman is great, despite the fact that auditors had said this woman must be investigated. He said nothing to see here and appointed her CEO. Carry on, do your job, well done. Now, all of this comes on the back of the Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi press briefing where he said, South Africa is rotten and politicians know and they're involved. To which our Captain Everready, President Cyril Ramaphosa, took a week to have a press conference that he arrived at late, addressed the nation and said, don't worry, action's going to happen. I'm going to suspend the police minister and call a commission of inquiry. Come back to me in a year from now. Only to see that South Africans just weren't happy with yet another commission of inquiry. But commission of inquiry we will do. That's what we do in South Africa. We don't investigate crimes. We call commissions of inquiry. Right? The bigger the crime, the less likely you are to answer for it. So anyway, he called his commission of inquiry and has taken abuse from many people, myself included. We don't need another commission of inquiry. Just go and investigate the damn charges. Put people in jail. We know how it goes. We had the Zondo Commission. We all know. We all sat through that. The point is that the public weren't happy with his commission of inquiry. The people that realized it and realized they better do something were the politicians sitting in Parliament saying, you know what, the natives are getting restless. The people might come after us with pitchforks if we don't do something. So they met in Parliament, or the tent that now sort of is our Parliament, because of course we allowed our Parliament building to get burnt down, and decided to put together a committee in Parliament to investigate it. Who did they put in charge? Somebody from the ANC, Soviet Lekhanyane. So you're going to have the ANC investigating the ANC. It's flipping crazy. I wonder what his decision would be. Why doesn't he just give us his decision now? I think it'll be pretty easy to work out what it would be. Now, that was only recently announced. And we're going to see what this parliamentary committee throws up. Because you're not going to get the softballs that you got when there was a commission of inquiry into higher education that led to the firing of the minister. She wasn't fired for the work she did as much as she was fired for chewing bubblegum and being rude to parliamentarians, and that got out and went viral. Who does she need to pay off? Probably the people that were sending it around on social media. Her being, rude to Parliament. Our politicians better watch out, if you ask me. The country is not in the mood for this any longer. We want action. We don't want commissions of inquiry or parliamentary committees. And it's not going to be long before vigilantism starts taking root in South Africa. It already is for minor crimes. But it might just start for major crimes. How much more of the can being kicked down the road can South Africans take? How much more theft of our tax money can we take before the country starts burning? Now, I'm not one of those people that believes that South Africa is going to have a revolution or anything. No. But I think that you could start seeing real outbreaks of genuine unhappiness, where people take to the streets, where people say, this is not good enough. We pay our taxes so that you can do your job. You're not kings. You're not royalty. Do what we pay you to do, or else. There's got to be an or else. And the or else we'll vote you out isn't good enough, because they voted out this party in the last election and they managed to do a deal with the hapless Democratic Alliance. And now they rule as if they never lost the election with just crossing one red line after another. Our governments had better get very, very serious and understand just how angry South Africa is. What is President Ramaphosa's answer to everything? When it's not a commission of inquiry, it's a stupid idea like a national dialogue, as if we don't know what the problems are. As if the problem is apartheid. No, that was 30 years ago's problem. Our problem now is our politicians not doing their jobs. Oddly enough, the people that saw this coming are the many foundations. These are the bodies that also suck off the teat of do-gooders and that have walked away from the national dialogue, because they understand that those people in the national dialogue are not going to get many dinner party invitations if they do participate, because there is no point to a national dialogue. Not right now. If we didn't know what the problem was, or if we had just emerged from a war or just emerged from something like apartheid, then it is appropriate. But not as a country that is being run in its 31st year with a constitution and laws. No, people are angry. We don't need more dialogue. We don't need more talk shops. We need action. And when the CEO of a massive parastatal doesn't fear the police, doesn't fear the politicians, and only fears the journalist, we have got some serious problems in this country. And I would think it would be in the best interest of our president and his cabinet, his bloated cabinet, the 70-odd people that have to have blue lights, to do their work, to do what we pay them to do, because this country has had enough. And it's about time that the politicians started to hear us. Thank you for joining us on the weekly update. We'll see you again next week. Thank you.